Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session of Jnanavardhini. Uh, I take great pleasure in introducing the speaker for today, Mr. Govind Srinivasan. Govind has over four decades of work experience. He worked in the Central Secretariat Service between 1982 and 87, and later worked in the Employee State Insurance Corporation from 1987 to 1995. He's also worked in the Indian Railways and Indian Audits and Accounts Department. He started working in the software development arena in 1996 and headed a development and recruitment company till 2002. He had a chance opportunity to attend and qualify the ISMS lead auditor course in 2004, which brought him into the management systems practice. He started his firm Paramount Dataware in 2003 and was associated with BSI India as a lead tutor and lead auditor for ISMS and BCMS standards from 2005 to 2014. He's a qualified lead auditor in QMS, Environment and Occupational Health and Safety Standards also. He's currently associated with Bureau Veritas Middle East since 2013 as a lead auditor and tutor, mainly for ISMS, BCMS, and SMS standards. He's currently engaged in establishing a professional certification body for management system standards practice specialization and a training institute that will focus on management system standards practitioner training course offerings called Business Systems Education and Research Institute. Having known him for more than a decade, I'd like to say that he proves always that age is just a number when it comes to learning. It's his inquisitiveness and his never-ending repository of information and his passion for exploring how things work that are a motivation for anyone working with him. And now, without further delay, I'd like to hand over the floor to Govind to present today's Jnanavardhini session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Manjula. Thanks for reminding that I'm an old man and I'm also trying to believe it. Welcome to one and all.
In a good way, sir, in a good way.
I just want to pull your leg. Okay. This session today, I was talking to Shalini and at the chiseled it in this way, interpretation of ISMS operative classes and controls from GDPR compliance perspective. While I started making out the presentation, I found that if I'm going to be including classes one by one, I will miss the excitement of talking about controls, which are also classes of the risk treatment controls, because it's standard 27,001 is one of the largest standard from a from an application sense. Okay. And before I continue, I would like to give a disclaimer. This disclaimer one, this session should be more useful or maybe quite eager and excited about what is ISO 27001. For those people, this presentation should be quite meaningful. Those who have got even a touch and go, but may not be familiar or conversant, they also will feel as a kind of an introduction, they will feel happy about it. Those who are experts, scholars, even people like Ramesh, Adepu and all, for them, this can be just a rehash, and I'm sorry about it because it is at an intro level I have written. Though I have a map in certain GDPR compliance requirements with the control domains, the fact is that in a 45 minutes, I need to cover many things. I have done my justice to it to the extent possible. I am a COVID volunteer at Chennai, and that makes me go about to quite a few areas every day. So of late, my availability at home itself is a challenge. So please bear with me if I am not coming to your expectations, but I'm sure that I can go back to Shalini and ask for another 1 hour in which I can be doing much more justice than what I'm trying to do now. Welcome. This is the objective of this presentation. Does ISMS aid GDPR compliance? Does ISMS aid GDPR compliance? Do we have a kind of a proof of concept, POC, okay, that can help GDPR compliance in any organization. So this introduction to this presentation is that I'm trying to do the mapping, 27001 and GDPR mapping to the extent possible. I have done it within these limitations I have told. See, an organization can establish its own ISMS. It doesn't need ISO 27001 at all. It can still call itself, okay, I have an ISMS in place. They can do that. But like your XML, extensible modeling language, how you're going to be talking to the world if you say that I have an SMS. So it is better to structure and get into an international mode, international format. So that is ISO 27001 2013. The standard is around about 20 years old, and it has gone leaps and bounds in acceptance across the world. Okay. In India, you've got around about roughly 3,000 companies which have got certified for ISO 27001, and more organizations. Tier 1, Tier 2 are all over. Now, Tier 3, Tier 4 all are coming. Small and medium enterprises and companies, they're all coming up for implementation, certification, etc. Okay. So 27001 makes an organization talk in a global language, that is the ISO language. I do accept that the standard in certain areas are still not so mature, but it will remain so because it is always a little reactive and not proactive. Standards, the very standards world is like that. Because when something comes up, when cloud comes up, then they take around 5-6 years to push in cloud into the standard. Same thing as IoT, same thing. The only one important point which we need to know is that the standard is not, standard is technology agnostic, product agnostic, and process agnostic. It is not prescriptive, and it is written at a 40,000 feet level, so it can fit in any organization. Now, what is the difference between security and privacy? Okay, here in ISO 27001 or information security, it is a process, it's an action, it's a strategy. The GDPR cannot be a strategy. GDPR you need to comply with, no matter what you want to do or what you don't want to do, you need to stay compliant if it is applicable to you. ISO 27001 is an option and a contractual obligation in case your customers or the government expects you to comply with. So simple it is. Whereas if you don't have it, the consequences you need to meet, and you need to also be answerable to your customers and punitive actions, damages, etc. But ISO 27001 is not so. But I have also argued here in this presentation that the 27001 standard, the entire standard as such, can be a set of preventive actions for implementing GDPR in several scenarios. This is what, if we see that it is written here, 27001 standard, it is the cover. The cover says information technology, security techniques, information security management systems, requirements. So this is not a practice standard. This does not consist of best practices or practice, no. Good practice, nothing. It is a requirement standard. An organization gets certified for 27001 only, while it can always take help from 27002, which is consisting of implementation guidance. The word information technology can be a misnomer because it is talking about people, process, technology, and one more, physical infrastructure, which normally people don't talk about it. It addresses that too. In my impression, in my understanding, this standard is probably one of the most comprehensive standards which can be called as business security management systems instead of calling it information security management systems. When I have an opportunity, I am a member of this ISO technical committee for security and resilience, not for information security. When I go into that, probably I need to fight for that because it does not talk about information technology alone, but information technology also, IT security also, but not IT security alone. Here is a quick snapshot of the standard. There is the standard has got a set of risk treatment controls. So the standard itself has got a portion called Annex A. Annex A consists of risk treatment controls. The standard is there from class 4 to class 10. There are quite a few classes. These classes are almost hard-coded. I mean, domain level, and that's class 4, class 5, like that. That is all there. For all the ISO management system standards, it's one and the same. But the Annex A, consisting of risk treatment controls, this is very exclusive to ISO 27001, and the similar approach is not there for any standard in the ISO family of standards. It has got 114 controls spread over 14 domains, each having one or more subdomains. Each domain, each one of the 14 domains have got one or more subdomains. Each subdomain having one or more controls. This is the way how they are structured. We will also see how quickly how the standard is formatted. One particular domain, we will see that quickly. Controls are risk treatment controls. When we say controls, we are talking about risk treatment controls here. Even though formally we need to call them also classes only. Okay, it is not, the standard is not addressing them as controls, but in a common parlance, when we talk to each other professionally, we call controls only and not classes. When we say classes, we mean the main standard classes, not the risk treatment classes. If we call that as controls, we can even call that. There is a requirement of statement of applicability. This also is specific to ISO 27001. You don't have similar such statement of applicability, to my knowledge, in any management system standard. And the statement of applicability is so important that even in the certificate given to an organization after the audit gets completed satisfactorily, the certificate has that clear mention. This certificate is given in terms of statement of applicability, version number dash, dated dash. That much is the importance for statement of applicability, which show that the audit organizations also take cognizance of the meaning of statement of applicability and the dependence, the reliability on statement of applicability, which is audited, which means that the statement of applicability consists of controls that are included in the statement of applicability, and exclusions also are said as exclusions. There are controls which can be excluded, but there should be a rationale with reference to the risk assessment policy, risk assessment methodology. The standard says risk assessment process. The risk assessment process. In terms of that, the organization has to justify why a particular control that is included in Annex A is needed to be excluded. That justification need to be given, as otherwise the audit will not pass through. Now, I don't know whether you are able to see this. Are you able to see this a little narrowing down your eyes?
Yeah.
Okay. So you please see that it is I have taken a particular one which has got quite a lot of relevance for GDPR. That itself I have taken here from the ISO standard one page. This is called A.18 compliance. Okay. In the Annex A, I have taken one particular domain. Out of the 14 domains I have mentioned, this one is a domain, and it has got specific controls that are meaningful for GDPR professionals, privacy professionals. A.18 compliance is a domain. A.18.1 compliance with legal and contractual requirements is a subdomain. And you have an objective. We need to keep in mind that the objective is very important. for us to make a note of it. When we are talking about change management, for example, we don't talk about change management, which the organization has got at a higher level. We will have change management. No, that is not the change management. We need to see what the standard talks in terms of the objective for change management. And these all are grouped together. One or more controls are grouped together and put into a subdomain. Now let us see 8.18.1. What is the objective here? To avoid breaches of legal, statutory, regulatory, or contracted obligations related to information security and of any security requirements. This is the objective. Under that, you can see certain controls which are there, 8.18.1.1. The letter A means it's Annex A. If the A is not there in the standard, we don't find it, it is a class. If it is A is there, it is Annex A, then it is part of the risk treatment control regime. Okay, so this is the structure, this is the broad structure of it. We will come back to it when we need it, but please have a quick look into 8.18.1.4, which is a strong connectivity between the standard and GDPR. It talks about privacy and protection of personally identifiable information. What does the control say? Privacy and protection of personally identifiable information shall be ensured as required in relevant legislation and regulation where applicable. If it is in India, if it is going to be PDPA, that will be coming up. Obviously, we need to configure our risk assessment, risk treatment in terms of how PDPA has got an impact in the organization. Insofar as GDPR, obviously, the GDPR comes into place insofar as 8.18.1.4. But other point, one more important point, which is a kind of an omnibus class. This is an omnibus class, 8.18.1.1, which talks about identification of applicable legislation and contractual requirements. If you can find out from the GDPR how granular the implementation is done, that is classes, the compliance is done, you can find all relevant legislative, statutory, regulatory, and contractual requirements, and the organization's approach to meet these requirements shall be explicitly identified, documented, and kept up to date for each information system and the organization. If you've got around 10 different departments strewn over, distributed in about, say, 8 to 10 locations, you need to find out how we are going to be creating a structure of compliance and mention it clearly for each information system. It can be there in 3-4 locations, it doesn't matter, but we need to do that. And the organization also, which means it is rather admitting the concept of enterprise level organizational compliance also, that is done at a, say, board level or at the CXO level. They also can have the pilot control. They can also take care of the larger perspective. They can do that, while each information system also should be bothered about dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. Now, I'm going a little depth. This is the broad intro, but I'm getting into the classes level clearly. As a set of classes, I said, typically like what you have as sections in a statute. In a statute in India, you've got sections. In GDPR, you've got articles. Like that, here you've got a set of classes. So even when we are in the audit report, when we talk about any compliance or non-compliance, we refer to the class. We don't call that a section or article. It's a bit different from many other ISO management systems. I told you that. It is one of the earliest risk management standards in the ISO family. And obviously, minus the risk management imperative, the standard advances is almost having no meaning. It is just nothing but a shell without flesh. So it is the risk management imperative. The standard pushes forward. It is known for, and it is accepted, and it has become popular. When we talk about risk management, we just need to understand what are all there, basically at the top domain level. One is your confidentiality, integrity, availability. that is class 6.1.2. Risk assessment also is part of it. Risk treatment comes under the next class 6.1.3. Risk assessment, risk treatment, both are there next to each other. And then the statement of applicability is also part of risk treatment. So it is also in 6.1.3. I have told about statement of applicability. So it is nothing but an Excel sheet, where normally an Excel sheet. Otherwise, if it is going to be a tool derived one, and the tool will generate a statement of applicability. The statement of applicability is a derivative, and it is not an input for your risk management activities. It is a derivative. SOA is not fixed in advance and then implementation is done. No, statement of applicability is a plan of action that shows which risk treatment controls are applicable to the organization. In terms of the risk assessment done, it should map to the risk assessment. There should not be divergence between the risk treatment controls put in the SOA and the risk assessment. They should have a synergy and synchrony with each other. And that statement of applicability will be a charter. That is a charter for implementing the controls in Annex A in the organization in terms of the project that has been accepted. This is clearly mappable to the Article 5, principles relating to processing of personal data. Article 35, data protection impact assessment, in the sense it mimics. There is a word clearly mentioned in the Article 35 about risk also. So I'm not saying that DBIA and RA of ISO 27001 are one and the same, but they have a considerable synergy between them. And if you know about risk assessment in ISO 27001, I'm pretty sure that you will be able to understand, grasp, absorb the impact of Article 35 quite easily. This is nothing but, for people who have not got formal introduction to ISO 27001, this is a quick understanding. The standard is not written exactly in this language, but the standard accepts if you are going to be doing this way. It's perfectly fine. You can see in the bottommost tier, threat agents, threats, vulnerabilities, assets. Okay. So we know that threats exploit vulnerabilities. If there is no vulnerability, even if there is a threat, it can do nothing. I will quickly say a Zen Buddhist quote. I will give it here. In a school of thought, Zen school of thought, the Zen school teacher was sitting along with the disciples, and he had put a question that in a big forest, thick forest, deep inside, a tree falls down. Nobody is there anywhere in the vicinity, listenable vicinity, and it's a huge tree. It has fallen down. Okay. Was there a sound produced? Different students answer differently. Ultimately, the teacher comes back and says that, students, please understand, if something has not been observed, listened to, seen, verified, it has not happened. Zen Buddhist philosophy. So if a vulnerability is not there, but if a threat is there, we don't have much to do with it, nothing we can do. In Israel, whether it's right or wrong, Israel, you have no lockdown, people go without mask, and there is no social distancing. Country-wise, entire country-wise, there is nothing. Most of the COVID controls have been relaxed, and the country is almost like a SOP mode, standard operating mode. Okay, I read about it. So there is a threat, but there is no vulnerability. So they have clearly come to a situation that COVID is not a problem for them, as of now at least. So the threat exploits vulnerability. And then please think about it that you got on the top, you got owners. Owners are bothered about their assets, so they impose countermeasures. The countermeasures is nothing but a risk treatments. Okay, the risk treatments reduce risks. Okay, and they have, one is the prevention, detection, another is avoidance and mitigation. Either this way. Okay, so You got in the standard itself, you got they are using different languages, and the risk from what? A risk arising out of the threat exploiting vulnerabilities. And threats cannot exploit vulnerabilities on their own. You need threat agents. If it is something called a theft, something is stolen, steal is a threat. Somebody can steal, so it is a threat. You need to have a thief. You need to have a robber. So the robber is a threat agent. The threat agent gives rise to threat. Okay, and the assets have vulnerabilities. If there is no asset, there is no vulnerability. If there are assets, the assets may have vulnerabilities and they are exploited by threats. This is the scenario that is basic understanding of risk assessment is this. We can have, there are many tools, many advanced tools, and think of it that if it is an insurance company, how much of a risk assessment they will do, actual risks. And if it is going to be a manufacturing company, what kind of a FEMA risk assessment and all goes in place. Toyota has got its own risk assessment methodology. So this is risk assessment itself is a separate discipline, and that is the reason why ISO came with ISO 31000 risk management. It is not a certifiable standard, but many organizations, unfortunately or fortunately, have got certified to that also. Some certification bodies have given the certification, though it does not have any meaning as an accredited standard. What is risk with respect to GDPR? I'm not quoting a class, an article. I'm quoting a recital 75. The risk to the rights and freedoms of natural persons of varying likelihood and severity result from personal data processing, which could lead to physical, material, or non-material damage, okay, where the processing may give rise to discrimination, identity theft, or fraud, financial loss, damage to reputation, loss of confidentiality of personal data protected by professional secrecy, unauthorized reversal of pseudonymization, or any other significant economic or social disadvantage. This is the recital 75. As you know, recital 75 has got its own limitation. Not somebody cannot be sued for not going by the recitals, showing evidence of compliance against recitals. But this recital gives an excellent opportunity for understanding what is the tenet of GDPR, what is the underlying meaning of risk within the context of GDPR. We see very carefully, you will find out that 27001 standard has got phenomenal, drill down controls to match the recital 75's expectations. I'm just giving you a quick security controls, how they work, in the sense before, after, during, and all. So you got an administrative set of controls, technical controls, and physical controls, physical infrastructure controls. One is the preventive. In order to prevent something, what do you do administratively? You can conduct security awareness, technical training, etc. And detective, during an incident, what you will do? You will do security reviews, audits. And what is the corrective action? Administratively, penalty. It can be say that, okay, you are dismissed. Or you can say, okay, fine, you are 1 week suspended. Or say you are given a penalty, 500 rupees you need to pay. Anything is okay, fine. In the sense, if it is a part of the deal, the contract entered into, it will go accordingly. In so far as technical controls are concerned, think of access control software, think of antivirus software. These are all to prevent. But can we say that an antivirus software is installed so there will be no virus? In which case, so many virus attacks that have been reported across the world would not have happened at all. So, and then detective, the audit trails. The audit trails, the objective of audit trails is to detect, has something happened or not? If something has happened, where it has happened, and who are responsible, create a clear trail and report it in the report. And what is the corrective action? Restore the system. Ensure that the system is restored. And corrective is different from correction. I'm talking about corrective only here, not a correction. And a correction is that immediately set right something that is acting as a stumbling block or is preventing a service delivery, anything it can be. But restore the system ensure means that such an incident should not occur again unless the systems and processes are changed. The same risk should not execute. Physical infrastructure, locks and keys, you lock and key, which is a preventive measure, and the detective, you take a motion detector, motion sensors, smoke and fire detectors. Unless there is a smoke, unless there is somebody going there in that vicinity, motion sensor will not prevent, but it will detect. Sensor will detect, but it will not correct. So what will you do? For example, corrective act, fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher is a corrective. And there can be a warning, and immediately a security guard can come into the place and find out who is going, where is he going, what do you want? Yes, all these things can be the alert. These are all alert systems. Uh, Information security, protecting personal information during the data life cycle. We see this wonderful, simple way of understanding data. This whole thing is a data information security, data security. We create data, we store it, we use it, share it, and then we back it up and destroy it. Information security addresses the protection goals of CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability during the full data life cycle. Even from a privacy perspective, all these things will have a meaning, because suppose think of it that you have destroyed the data which you should not have at all, because you need to keep it for this much of time, or till your requirement is needed. If there is any legal requirement of maintaining the privacy data, personal privacy data, you need to comply with that. Okay, so if it is not there, then that means the full life cycle, what I'm talking about here, is truncated. That truncation is not allowed. And for that, you will have preventive controls. When it fails, you will have a detection mechanism. And then you will do immediately correction and then take corrective action. This is the way the standard goes in a very structured workflow. This is nothing but a quickly comparing a rough comparison in the privacy by design by mentioning what could be security controls, what could be privacy controls in the privacy by design itself. In as much as how we call privacy by design in GDPR, you can call 27001 is a security by design, information security by design. So we are trying to, here in this particular slide, we are trying to deploy that use our understanding of security controls for understanding what would be the privacy controls list. These are all not mapped one-to-one. These are nothing but a list of controls. In security controls, you've got authentication, authorization, auditing, non-replication, encryption, hashing, file signature, secure authentication. Don't you think that all these controls have one another meaning in the compliance to GDPR? Preventive controls? Obviously. All of them, one way or other, act as preventive controls to GDPR. Whereas in privacy controls, what do you do? What are the privacy controls? Unobservability, anonymization, pseudonymization, privacy design techniques, data design techniques. These are all the privacy controls. And in the circle, what do you see? You can see the CIA triage and the confidentiality, integrity, availability triage, and the flanking out is the pseudonymity, anonymity, observability, and the unlinkability. So if you cannot link, and then for a number of reasons, you need to create a linking effect, and the linking is not there, then the data is not complete. The data is truncated. Okay, for example, you've got data birth of so many people, and there is some jumbling, there is some virus comes up, and it really makes a mess of all your data. What will happen? Unlinkability. So it's all gone. So what you will do? So you will have backup. Backup is a control. You will have business continuity. Business continuity is a control. What does information security compliance present to privacy compliance? The technical measures to secure the personal data is Article 32(1) of GDPR. You find this particular Article 32(1) of GDPR and look into 27,001, you will find there's a ton of help, the huge help available in 27,001 in a structured manner for complying with this particular requirement in Article 32(1), that says technical measures to secure personal data. Privacy breach preventive controls, treatment controls, privacy compliance risk preventive controls. This also information security can take care of it much. I'm not saying that everything can be taken care of because it all depends upon what is your risk assessment structure, risk assessment rating, how deep it is, how vast it is, how granular it is, how comprehensive it is. If a risk assessment is a slim one, it's kind of a snapshot, I think, it will also be giving you a snapshot assurance, not a comprehensive assurance. Organizational readiness to deploy GDPR compliance regime. So if you do the ISO 27001 or ISMS, I'm not saying you need to go for the audit and typically going for the audit certification, etc. No, I'm not trying to peddle that. But if you, it is easy for organization to deploy 27001 by conducting awareness training program. There are enough opportunities to train people for 27001 across the world. So these are all the plus points available right now to consider information security compliance for launching your privacy compliance. Article 32 of GDPR requires organization to take measures to pseudonymize and encrypt personal data. What a ready-made control domain is there, A.10 cryptography is available straight away in 27,000. Ensure the ongoing confidentiality, integrity, availability, and resilience of processing systems and services. This is the 32 article requirement. This you can take care of 6.1.2. Risk assessment gives you ample opportunity to configure your compliance to meet your GDPR requirements as well. Be ready to restore the availability and access to personal data in a timely manner in the event of an incident. You have got A.16, information security, incident management. You've got about 7-8 controls in that. It comes to you readily. Implement a process for regularly testing, assessing, and evaluating the effectiveness of technical and organizational measures for ensuring the security of process. There's a wonderful main class available. It's a main class. I'm not talking about risk treatment controls. Normally, when an auditor goes, the team leader used to be bothered about many of the classes audit. The audit of controls compliance, risk treatment controls compliance are shared between the auditors, and some portion the team leader also may take. But the team leader is responsible to ensure that the bulk of the main classes, when I say main classes, I'm talking about the standard, not Annex A. So here in the main class 9.1, monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation, if you see that very carefully, you will find that you've got a wonderful opportunity to map your GDPR compliance with what is said in 9.1, line by line, word by word, phrase by phrase. Only thing is, it is all there in the way how do you configure your organizational requirements with the requirements in the standard. Article 32 requires risks from accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, alteration, unauthorized disclosure of or access to personal data. We identified and mitigated. We've got a set of controls. They are not comprehensive, they are much more. For the purpose of quickly putting it here, I've used only these many controls. A.8.3, media handling, A.9.4.1, information access restriction, A.18.1.4, privacy and protection of personally identifiable information, which we had seen just a while ago. So all of them, they have close relevance to what Article 32 expects. GDPR states that organizations must adopt appropriate policies, procedures, and processes to protect the personal data they hold and be able to demonstrate compliance. My take is this. In Annex A 27,001 controls, you've got large number of controls that can be mapped to this policies, procedures, processes, because in some of the control requirements under Annex A, it is clearly written where the standard has felt it is a must. It is imperative to have a policy. It is mentioned very clearly, you will have a policy for this. Where it is a procedure, they are very clearly told you need to have a procedure. If it is a documented procedure, it says a documented procedure or a documented policy. If it is a documented process, it says as documented process. If it says process, then you should show evidence that you have gone by that formally, but the auditor does not. I'm saying auditor because I'm also an auditor, so I speak from that hat also. The auditor cannot demand, come on, show me a documented process, documented procedure. No, it is not written as documented procedure. I ask you, you please show me. No, it is not possible. So the standard for many reasons, it is very clearly written out like this, like if it wants documentation, very clearly written there. If not, you need to show only the practice area proof. You need to show that you got a proof. It can be a small, a structure. You may have a process flow pasted in the shop floor. That's okay. That's okay. That you need to take a note of it. Yes. Mature ISMS compliance helps avoiding significant GDPR non-compliance fines and reputational damage. I want to tell you one thing here. In the Annex A controls, when I say something like, even I will say this, we go to GDPR, it is here, the GDPR control is there. For something like intellectual property rights, say 8.18.1.2, intellectual property rights. In one organization, it may take 8 measures. They may have to come with 8 measures. I'm just giving you a thumb rule, 8 measures, to show comprehensive evidence that they have implemented this control, intellectual property rights. In another organization, it is enough if they show 3 measures. So each control does not mean one measure. It can be 1 measure also. It can be 15 measures also. It can be 150 measures also. It all depends upon what is your business and how deep is your business process by which you churn out and make delivery to the customer. Are you a production organization? Are you a service organization? What is the contract that you have with your customer? How demanding is your customer? How many audits the customer does in your premises or for your processes? How much of a rejection takes place? Going by your history, all these things decide how many measures you will have so that the treatment control, once implemented, it comes to your rescue and it does not fall flat when it is needed to help. Article 32, I need to say here, a disclaimer here, Article 32 GDPR does not make any mention about 27,001. It does not understand even in 27,001. It doesn't want to say anything, like it is agnostic. It doesn't say ISMS as a measure or strategy. It doesn't say anything to minimize risk of a data breach. It is up to us to decide what do we want. So 27,001 comes as a strategy, not as a tactical response, but as a strategy. If you don't have a strategy, you need to resort to tactical response. You may or may not succeed. But if the strategy fails, your tactical response alone will not succeed all the time. Now, in the following slides, quickly I will take you into a survey of more 27,001 requirements that can significantly aid GDPR compliance. In the meantime, Ramesh, how much of time is left?
Sir, another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, no problem. Please go ahead.
No. I just want to 15 minutes, right? No, it is easy for me to
Yes, sir.
go quickly, not a problem. I can even take questions later.
Yes, sir.
If you see here, it is an asset management. Okay, so in the asset management here, inventory of assets, inventory, ownership, acceptable use, and return of assets. These are all there. It is there. One of the controls. Okay, one of the control domains. In one of the control domains, you know what is the control domain. Under that, it's a subdomain. Asset management is a domain. Inventory of assets is a subdomain. Inventory, ownership, acceptable use, and return of assets are all controls. So if you take interpret assets as whatever that you have in terms of personal data, sensitive personal data, whatever that you want to call. But all these things can be put into inventory of assets and can be measured, monitored for their compliance to the needed requirements. Yes. Information classification. This is one of the most significant controls in 27,001. Classification, please appreciate this. In classification alone, how much of a sub-classifications you can bring in personal data. Think of classification that after 2 years, you cannot have this particular personal data at all. The aging, okay. 7 years you can have it. 5 years you've had. After 2 years, you cannot have the data at all. So if your classification does not help, what can help? So obviously, if this classification is perfect, precise, then you need to label it. Soft label or a hard label, whatever way you want to, you need to do that. And then comes up the task of how are you going to handling it? Who are going to be handling it? What is the process by which you are going to handle it? These are 27,001 concerns. Media handling, think of it, management of renewable media. Are we not seeing in the news that XY organization, their data, because of data breach, 5 million personal data available now floating on internet. Okay, so is it possible that a hard disk was taken out? Yes. Disposal of media, do you have a process for that? Do you ensure that data is really deleted? It is a complete wipe, data wipe, or what process that you have? Do you know that the process is safe, secure, and then physical media transfer? Who is taking the hard disk to your, if you want to store even the hard disk in another place, which is your PC place or whatever that is, you want to be safe. Okay, data tapes you want to transfer. So who is transferring? What is this understanding of it? It all drills down to that level. How it is carried? You carry it in a non-magnetic shield, or how is it? Do they take it in a two-wheeler, on the motorbike, on the petrol tank, or do you have a bag for that? The devil is in the details. If you ask me, what is ISO 27001 this treatment? It gives an unmistakable impression to you that devil is in the details. GDPR, the entire set of controls under this domain asset management can be interpreted from GDPR compliance perspective, treating personal data as information security asset. You only need to, do the find, replace, and then you cannot replace, you can add. Access control, you've got a set of access controls here, access control policy, and then the user access management, in which who is going to be actually handling the data. Take personal data. What is the access rights do they have? Is there a secret authentication by which only a couple of people will have access? Is it defined? Do you know that 20 people who have gone out of the organization, their rights have been revoked or not? And then after that, removal of adjustment of access rights, you have 20 more licenses which you can deploy. You know about it. You're conscious of it. User responsibilities and information access restriction. Please think of it very clearly. Information access restriction. privacy data access restriction. That is the meaning of it. Okay, so can somebody do some re-engineering of your privileged utility programs and get access? What about insider threat? There's no mention clearly of insider threat, but read use of privileged utility programs as insider threat. How many insider threats have been executed in the world so far? Access control to program source code. If it is there, then if it is altered, somebody can crash your whole system completely. Your entire database can be crashed if the source code is available to a person who has a malignant need, not a benign need, malignant need. So this GDPR that covers is Article 5 and Article 25. That is the privacy by design and the principles what I'm talking about. Cryptography controls, policy and the use of cryptography controls and key management. Clearly, if you don't have cryptography controls, that means that your data is raw, your data is clearly visible, and there's nothing called masquerading or protecting by encryption algorithm. If you want to give, for example, if you want to give something like an algorithm you want to use, and then say, if it is my name is Govind Srinivasan, you call that, by some jumbled characters and call me in a totally different name. Only by encryption, decryption, that mode, we can find out what is exact name. That encryption is also an encryption. Pseudonymization is also possible. Article 4/5, which is a definition. I'm not talking about an operative article, a definition. The processing of personal data in such a way that the data can no longer be attributed to the specific data subject without the use of additional information. That additional information can be that encryption algorithm, encryption philosophy that is used in an organization. Okay. Physical and environmental security. We are not talking much about physical and environmental security in GDPR at all. But think of it that it has happened in quite a few organizations where somebody coolly enters, no question of hacking, gating, and all, coolly enter into, talk to someone, get the data in a USB pen drive, go. A whole lot of controls that treat risks relating to one, unauthorized physical access, two, enhanced security for working in secure areas. What is that secure area? Take into account your data center, your NOC, network operating center, your SOC, security operating center, your equipment including environmental threats and hazards. All these things are controls under physical and environmental security in ISO 27001. ISO 27001, when I said that it's a comprehensive one, please think of it. It has got nothing to do with technology as such. It is covering fire, water, in the sense if there is going to be an early warning system, if there's a flooding, immediately it can give alert. Even 1,000 kilometers or 5,000 kilometers away, it can give you alert. And all the required stakeholders can immediately swing into action. So this GDPR, what is it? It is a breach prevention. There's nothing but a breach prevention. Idea is the breach prevention. And operation security, it is nothing but your actual your typical IT facility, IT infrastructure team. This is IT infrastructure team's job. Please think of it, whatever we are talking about, operating procedures and responsibilities, protection from antivirus, protection from virus, which is a malware. Malware is virus also. You got worms, you got vandals, so many things. We call all of them under malware. And backup, we call that information backup. Think of archives, logging and monitoring, in that so specific event logging, protection of log information, administrator and operator logs, to that granularity, clock synchronization, when it happened, when the breach happened. No, in our your location, it showed 725. No, it could not be. It was 410. That will never come if you got clock synchronization. If you got your NTP server, which addresses what clock synchronization teams, cloud synchronization need, it is done. Control of operational software, which means installation of software and operational system without access, without permission, don't give access. Clear, authority, authorization, technical vulnerability management, management of technical vulnerabilities. Even think of management of technical vulnerabilities. There is a glitch. It is not accepting. When I went to the first, vaccination, I showed my Aadhaar card. It said that it has already been done. Yes, sir, you have already taken, sir. Why are you coming now? Vaccination in King's Institute. I said, I'm coming for the first time. No, sir, it is very clearly done. Please talk to our boss. I talked to the boss. Is it so? Are you sure? I said, I'm sure. I've just come. And they said that, do you have any other thing? I went home and brought my election identity card, ration card, a driving license, passport, all that. Okay, sir, you have done a good job. Please wait. And my election identity card got accepted. What is it? It's a technical vulnerability. It is in the way how they have done the code. Somewhere there is a code glitch, database glitch or code glitch. Restrictions on software installation. If anybody can do anything, that means nobody becomes responsible. So put restrictions on software installation. Somebody from a laptop in a network, in a distributed network, cannot just like, oh no, I need very urgently. I need to talk to our customer tomorrow morning. So I'm installing the software. Give me exemption. Nothing doing. We will do it from the server. Information systems audit considerations. Information systems audit controls, which includes who will keep the audit tools, when penetration testing tool, everything, who will keep it? Who will be responsible for that? If a third party comes up, who knows what is he bringing about to do the audit? These are all coming under your Article 25 again. Article 25 has got a big sweep. It has got a big influence on 27,000. Privacy by design I'm talking about. System acquisition, development and maintenance. In fact, this particular domain, system acquisition, development and maintenance, is the main parental control apparatus for showing evidence for Article 25. Because it has got the entire software development activity from the design to delivery and maintenance, it covers in one go under Article 14, under Domain 14, system acquisition, development and maintenance. What does it cover? Security requirements of information systems. Please see that very carefully here, how detailed it is. Information security requirements, analysis and specification. Please add privacy also there. Securing application services on public networks. Will your personal data go through public networks? Is it possible that it can be hacked? And if it is hacked, are you safe? Is there a breach then? Oh, protecting application service transactions. Security in development and supporting processes. Security development policy. Security system change control procedure. Technical review of applications after operating platform changes. Then comes where important one is the secure system engineering principles. Please think of it that if your secure system engineering principles is so detailed and so comprehensive, it should cover your privacy also by default, even if privacy is not specifically written, because standard itself, 27,001 standard itself has got a clear control, that is the A.18.1.4, which I mentioned. It covers personally identifiable information also. So the Article 25 and Article 4 in bracket 5, pseudonymization, which is definition, whatever I've written here, they are addressed by this particular domain of controls. Supply relationships, you know pretty well, processors, how important they are to the controllers, and even in the GDPR compliance. How much of a dependence the data controllers have got on the data processors. So obviously, the supply relationship entirely, 27,001, the way how it addresses is good enough. You need to put on the coat of a data protection officer and look into the standard in so far as this particular domain is concerned. Information security incident management. This is one of the most critical, I would say, most critical set of controls addressed by ISO 27001 to make compliance to Article 33 and Article 34. And please have a look into it. Let me not read it line by line. Please have a look into the controls, written responsibilities onwards. So you can see here that it is talking about a weakness also. If there is a weakness, it is reported. It need not end up in an incident. Please report at the weakness level itself and don't wait till it becomes an incident. So proactive is the control. Okay? So once it has become an incident, then respond to the security incident. Report the weakness, but respond to incident. Okay. So learning from incidents, learning from security incidents. It is written twice. Sorry, and collection of evidence. Collection of evidence can be also be steganography. It can be a kind of a how they are going to be ensuring that chain of custody of information, so that they can know where it occurred, when it occurred, how it occurred. For that, this particular control, collection of evidence can be a phenomenal control to help us to know how it happened. If the breach has happened, okay, you'll be fine. But you do not know even how it happened, where it happened, who is responsible, how do we manage it. Information security aspects of business continuity. Business continuity does not really come up as a very active requirement for GDPR compliance. But see it again from Article 25, privacy by design, because in case your primary data center is not available and you don't have the disaster recovery site at all, or adequate disaster recovery arrangements are not there, and so availability of data, personal data, when in terms of how you have configured it, should be available. If it is not available, what will happen? So those aspects, the BCM, information security aspects of BCM addresses. But very, very important point is that this standard does not compete with ISO 22301. No. ISO 22301 is a business continuity management system. It talks about business continuity in a holistic manner. But here, we are talking about only information security continuity, not the entire business continuity of an organization. So when we are talking about planning information security continuity, we are only talking about data, information security of data and other attending factors. Implementing information security continuity and verify, review, evaluate information security continuity. In BCM, we conduct tests and exercises. It is not even written in that way. Verify, I take it as a test. In an audit, have you conducted a PC test and all? I mean, have you verified it? And after testing it, did you review whether your RTO, your MD part, do they have meaning? Do you know that they are all reliable? That's what is verified. Redundancies, availability of information processing facility. Nothing but again, DR site 1, DR site 2. If it is going to be a large bank, okay, one DR site even is not enough. They have made it clearly, they have come out with the fact in the risk assessment. So they know that they need to create geographically distributed into 4 locations. One in Thailand, another is in New York, yet another in London, one in India. Okay. So this is covered under 25, 33, 34. Again, in case there is a disaster, what will happen? You need to have a DR data center. If you don't have a DR data center, if your DR data center also has failed, then your Article 33 gets invoked. You need to give a notification, personal data breach in case it has happened. Breach it's a huge topic. Breach is not just in data not available. There are data stolen. Anything can be there in the breach. Communication of personal data breach to the data subject. If you don't know at all, if you don't access data at all, what will you do? You are not able to access data. What will you do? You are not able to access mails. What will you do? So Article 34.3, 34 and 25, privacy by design, all are available. Okay. Compliance, last one. This is last. Compliance with legal and contractual requirements. Please see it very carefully. How much importance is there for GDPR professionals with reference to this particular requirement of 27,001. It is called A.18, last domain. Identification of applicable legislation and contractual requirements. Obviously, GDPR itself is a requirement for organizations that have got a need. IP rights, intellectual property rights, protection of records, Article 30, records of processing activities. Okay, protection of records, when you say it is a control there. So Article 30, records of processing activities, clearly address this requirement. Privacy and protection of personally identifiable information. This is a parental control giving scope for GDPR compliance itself under ISMS. It is a parental control. A.18.1.1 clearly recognize that there could be a GDPR that which ISMS practitioners also need to be bothered about. Regulation of cryptographic controls, protection of personal data characteristics. It addresses protection of personal data characteristics. That is what regulation of cryptographic controls. When we talk about regulation of cryptographic controls, we are talking about statutory regulation. Okay. Bank, for example, they have got a need for statutory regulation of personal data. Information security reviews, independent review of information security. These are all, oversight. These are all oversight controls. Compliance with security policy and standard, again, oversight. Technical compliance review, oversight, is all come under information security reviews. These are fundamental requirements of GDPR itself, if you see carefully that. Ending up notes, 27,001 compliance for GDPR compliance is a strategy and it's not a mandatory one. It helps an organization to go through the route of ISMS compliance. As this is quite a deep one, it helps in many ways for showing evidence for GDPR. It is easy to train people, particularly for privacy by design, for showing evidence like implementing the requirements for privacy by design. ISMS, ISO 27001 comes up phenomenally. Questions?
I think people had put the question in the chat window, Mr. Govindan.
Okay.
I can even help because.
Okay, one second. Okay. I might see that.
Yeah, it starts with Dr. Limaye. Yeah, if you go up.
No, one second.
Yeah. Can I help you, Govindan sir? Can I read it for you?
Here we don't use Zoom at all.
Yeah, fair enough. In the chat window, if you go.
You can read out, Ramesh.
Yeah, I'll read it for you. I'll read it for you, Mr. Govindan.
Chat is there. Yes.
Dr. Limaye his question is if vulnerability is there, but as you mentioned, there is a minimal chance of exploitation, then can the vulnerability be scaled down from high or critical to low as per ISO?
Where is it written here?
You have to just move in the chat window.
Oh yeah, correct. I mean that. What is his name?
Dr. Limaye.
Sir, if vulnerability is there, but as you mentioned, there is a minimal chance of exploitation. Can the vulnerability be scaled down from high to critical to low as per ISO? See, it all depends on your risk assessment. How do you have your risk assessment process defined? If your risk assessment process is granular enough, it will give you scope for, okay, this is the risk assessment that you have done. This is the risk. Actually, you arrive at the risk, okay, considering, normally, see, it is the standard is a little diluted now, but most organizations many organizations have got the threat vulnerability factor. They identify threats and map it with vulnerabilities, okay? But vulnerabilities, you don't need to clearly do that these days. Manjula, am I right? Manjula, madam. Oh, Manjula. I'm talking like Modi.
Manjula, I think you're on mute.
Yes, sorry, I'm on mute.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is not there for us. Only threat is there, right? We don't, in the standard, we don't, earlier we had vulnerabilities also, but these days we don't have in the 31,000 model, we don't have vulnerabilities as a requirement in the standard in 27,000, correct?
That is correct, sir.
So,
it's no longer a requirement. It doesn't prevent you from assessing your vulnerabilities, obviously.
So it all depends upon risk assessment, how robust your risk assessment. According to your risk assessment, when you know that this risk is not permitted for me, I cannot live with this risk. So what is that? It can be low, medium, high, or low, very low, low, medium, high, very high. You can have in the way how you want to put your risk assessment methodology, you can have it. You can say that all low risk, I will not treat it. I will accept it. That means that is a residual risk what are the residual risks you will live with? You cannot keep the general thumb rule of risk assessment is that you cannot close down all the risks. You will have to live with risks. What risk you will live with? After that, you will start treating. Maybe if there are 600 risks, 135 risks are coming in the low risk category, and your risk assessment process says low risks will not be treated. We will keep an eye on that. We will monitor that, but we will not treat it. So, which means that 135 risk you will not treat at all. Moderate onwards, you will treat it. How much you will treat it? That is your finally your acceptable. What is the criteria for treatment? You need to treat up to this level. Okay, up to this level, I need to treat. If it is at 3 by 5, it's okay. But if it is risk is at 4 by 5, I will say that I need to bring it down to 3 by 5. I'm giving you a thumb rule. That's all, just to make up quickly. But the risk assessment is not done so quickly. We have seen very flimsy risk assessments also. So it is enough if you are clearly mapping it in terms of the requirements of the standard. But in many cases, it will not help you if you are having a very flexible risk assessment, very liberal risk assessment. I mean, risk does not understand you. We need to understand risk. Risk does not understand us. So for your question, minimal chance of exploitation. That minimal chance of exploitation is what the likelihood and the impact. You go by the likelihood and impact factor. What is the likelihood? What is the trend analysis that gives you an idea that this is the likelihood because it does not happen during the last 5 years. So what is the possibility that it can occur? But in a very, very process-oriented organization, they will not accept it. They will not accept it. They will say, it has not happened, but I will still treat it. It all depends upon organization to organization, their risk orientation and their risk assessment process, how they have defined it, accordingly it will happen. Minimal chance of exploitation is normally considered low, in which case it is not treated at all.
Yeah.
Then can we see your question? Then can the vulnerability be scaled down from high to critical low? That's what I said. You don't need to do anything at all. Finished. That you are talking about minimal.
Right.
Next question.
Yeah, it's from Subraidu, sir. Govind, sir. Mr. Subraidu, his question is with the
How
new
about acquisition of data from a third party, including purchase of data? Okay. We are talking about ISO 27001 standard. So requirement. How about acquisition of data from a third party? Okay. So obviously, please see if you are going to be acquiring data straight away, from where you are acquiring. Do you have a do you have an agreement in place? First of all, do you have an agreement in place? And the risks are covered in the agreement. Okay, who carry the risks? On whose head risks are there? For the genuineness of the data, for the reliability of data, genuineness, reliability, what the data is meant for, will it do the job? Okay, so all these things are, there is a confidentiality agreement clause, which is there in the standard itself. In terms of that, first of all, it is ensured that we get into confidentiality. And then including purchase of data, when you purchase, are you talking about a supplier? Then you got your supplier control 8.15. You got a supplier relationships that pops up and makes sure that you ensure that the controls in supplier relationships are adhered to in letter and spirit.
So linked with that, also in new models where people are talking about sale of data, right? So on the disposal is handled, but let us say if a business model entails sale of data also, what kind of controls would be?
If you are selling a data, you are selling it to a customer, right?
Yeah. Right.
Obviously, you become a customer. You are a supplier. You have a customer. The customer buys it from you, correct? So
yeah,
obviously your contractual obligations, 8.18.1.1 kicks in, okay, where you got a contract in place and you need to meet that. Normally, it's not a one-time data purchase. Now, it can be over a period of time, you may be you may yourself be acquiring data and selling it to 5-6 organizations. I know I have implemented ISO 21001 in an organization in Bangalore that has got multi-locations across the world, and they are an investment research company. They need to write on behalf of big organizations which are merchant bankers. And merchant bankers, they put their stamp as though that is their report and give it. At no point of time, this company can tell even remotely that they have written it. Yes, they should not. It should not give any impression who wrote that, which company wrote that, or which individual wrote that, which analyst wrote that. So that kind of a literally metallic, it's a steel kind of a confidential agreement is signed between the customer, and audits also take place. And please think of requirements like SSA is 18, okay, and things like that, which is a
Actually, the question is more around personal data, because if it is sale of personal data, do you think that a standard that was written maybe 20 years ago, in the absence of these kind of business models existing, with the emergence of this kind of business models, any updates are required to handle these scenarios?
I tell you one thing, even if we take it, the standard is written at 40,000 feet or at least 30,000 feet, you can say. Yeah. But so obviously, when I say A.18.1.1, obviously the customer comes into the picture. And also law comes into the picture. This A.18.1.1 is an extremely sweeping class. It talks about statutory and it talks about contract also. So one is you need to comply with the statutory. In the sense, whether you got a customer or not, you need to meet the statutory. If GDPR is applicable to you, then you need to comply with that. Okay, when you're selling it. And then the customer contract kicks in as an add-on to that. So each information system, etc., very detailed it is given. So obviously, it all is there in the way how we interpret and comply with.
Yeah.
Any other question?
Mr. Govind sir, you may look at Mr. Namit Kothari. Can the audit happen immediately after a breach? Is this a better scenario for audit?
Vijayendra Shanai, right?
No, Mr. Namit Kothari.
Naveen Kothari.
I was just reading it for you.
Oh, Namit Kothari.
Yeah.
Can the audit happen immediately after a breach? Is this a better scenario for audit? See, from an ISO perspective, let me tell you, ISO standard is like an arranged marriage. Everything happens by arrangements, clearly, precisely by arrangements. There is nothing like normally, unless an organization decides differently, in ISO standard audits, internal audit and external audit, they are all very clearly programmed in advance. But we don't call that as an audit. For example, if what you are talking about, this A.16, what I was talking about, applies excellently. What is that? Information security incident management. In that, what do? They need to immediately respond to information security incidents. When they respond, they need to investigate. Information security incident shall be responded to in accordance with the documented procedures. What is the documented procedures? Management responsibilities and procedures shall be established to ensure a quick, effective, and orderly response to information security incident. Without investigation, can a response be called as acceptable? So what you are talking about, is this a better scenario for investigation? Yes. Audit comes up in planned intervals. Whether it is internal audit or external audit, it comes in the planned intervals. But investigation of an incident, it is given top priority even by the standard. You can even, it all depends upon SLA and OLA. SLA, you can say that you need to complete the investigation within 2 hours. If not, you need to escalate to the CDO. And within 4 hours, if you have not done it, you need to escalate to the CEO. Yes, that much of escalation and all will happen. Depends upon what is the kind of incident. Everything is defined clearly in the SLA itself. So the SLA also will be a guide to you to understand what kind of an investigation you will do. It is an emergency investigation. Okay, then obviously emergency change management immediately to put things. The idea of incident management is to ensure that correction is made immediately. Available services are restored. The services that can be restored immediately are restored. And then it can take a little time, maybe 1 day, maybe 10 days, maybe 1 hour, for corrective action to be put in place, for which you do a root cause analysis. You understand what is the damage done and how possible it is by applying your corrective actions that damage will not occur again. That incident will not occur again. I mean, recur again, not occur again. Preventive controls, occurrence. Corrective controls, recurrence. That recurrence is not permitted under corrective action. So your question is answered by information security incident management. Excellent.
Great. Sir, I think the last one, can we go, sir, from one Mr. Nikhil? Is there any standard or scale to map confidentiality versus risk assessment with respect to different roles in the organization? Last one.
Oh yeah, I understand. Our best practices method.
Correct.
You see, I mean, in the 27005, ISO 27005 has come out with a new standard. It was published last year, I believe. 27005 itself. That is it has got a best practices. Earlier 27005, as a practitioner, I would say that people like me, Manjula and all, we did not care for that much. But this 27005 appears to be much better. So this particular 27005 standard should be definitely be can be looked at. One. Number two, insofar as tools are concerned, there are plenty of tools available in the market. Some of them are ER and ERM tools, kind of a risk assessment at ERM level. They're all, some of them are very filthy costly, but in my understanding, most organizations, they in India, considering the cost factor, they maintain it at Excel level. But some organizations have done a damn good job, even at Excel level. They have done a terrific job, and we are baffled by that. There's a way, I mean, how they are showing the maturity. And there are also organizations which are employing the tool, and they say very peevishly, meekly, say, sir, the tool is the bug, sir, the tool is not working. So we have raised a complaint. So we have got the last risk assessment only done that we will show, but we have raised the incident also. This has been noted in the internal audit also. That means, hey guy, don't raise anything on that. We have got a 1-year-old risk assessment last year. This year we have not done it. That's also there. And there are organizations which are buying tools which cannot be maintained at all. So you need to spend a little time on that. Understand what do you want to buy. 27,005, the latest one, I say that it is definitely a best practice for risk assessment.
Great. I think we are almost through with all the questions, Mr. Govindan. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I just very quickly, on behalf of FDPPI management and all the participants over here, would like to thank you, Mr. Govindan, for an excellent kind of, last 1.5 hours, and knowing little bit about this 114 controls or 27,000. And believe me, the way you have covered, the way you have mapped all the annexure A controls in the domain, in starting from asset management to access control to cryptography to physical and environmental security, operation security, your software development, supplier relationship, incident management, business continuity, and compliance. In a nutshell, A.5 to A.18, and with the relevant articles of GDPR, oh, believe me, knowing again little, I'm amazed, and I'm sure all in the call would have got a kind of, what is needed from the critical aspects of GDPR and this. Quite interestingly, once again, I would like to thank you on behalf of everybody over here. Quite informative session and beautiful, sir. Thank you.